Third time's a charm, they say. I've been having trouble with this video with the actual video portion, not the audio. I think I have it set up now. So welcome back. In this video, I'm going to start. I have 12 varieties here that I think is well suited for our climate in Newfoundland. I'm going to tell you about these in detail in the next video. This video, I'm going to go through some files I have here and show you how I went about actually selecting these varieties. I've been doing my research over the winter, as you know, and this is one of the Excel workbook files that I built. On this tab, I have growing temperatures by type. The first column is the type of crop, not the variety. So amaranth, basil, you got bean. I have baking bean, which is your regular dry bean, beets, broccoli, cabbage, and so on. In the second column, this is the base temperature below which those type of plants will not put on any growth. It's in degrees Celsius, so 5 degrees Celsius, that will be your cool season crops, and 10 degrees Celsius will be your warm season crops. They survive below that. Carrots will survive down to -4 Celsius, kale down to like -8 or something, but they won't put on any growth below 5 degrees Celsius. In the third column, there's a optimum low. In the fourth column is an optimum high. If you watched my What Grows Here Annuals video, you would have seen this graph before. And it shows how the growth rate of a plant changes as temperature rises. It starts at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. This is your warm season crops. 50 degrees Fahrenheit will be about 10 degrees Celsius. And for this particular example, it's saying that its maximum growth rate will be at 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Most things in biology, if you graph a feature by what's affecting it, you will get a bell-shaped curve similar to this one. And so what they have done, you have just the exact temperature for its maximum growth, and then it starts to drop off right away. However, what I have here is an optimum high and an optimum low, and also over here is a maximum temperature. So you can see the optimum high for beet is 18. The maximum temperature is 24. So when you're looking up the temperature range for plants, they will give you a range. So that will be like in this area, right? This is 86, but your optimum, they would say maybe 80 to 90. And they don't drop off right away. It's just that beyond the optimum high, any excess in heat will do you no good. The growth pattern will continue on out straight for a while until it gets to that maximum temperature. Beyond that, it will start to drop off and show signs of heat stress. This optimum GDUs, this is what I've calculated for the maximum GDUs a plant can use. I am assuming that the actual optimum of the optimum will be halfway in between these two numbers. So what I do is add the two numbers together and divide by 2, and then subtract the base. The same as if you were calculating the amount of GDUs that you got in a particular day. Here I have the optimum germination temperature. Now this is an example of why a lot of plants will do better as transplants, even if you got a long growing season. You see, beets here, their optimum high is 16 to 18. I can plant them out in early June because they're base 5 plant. But their optimum germination temperature is 10 to 26, so you want it at least about 15 degrees Celsius. And over here, I've been having problems with my beets. They would not bulb up. The plant would grow, but I would get, at best, little tiny bulbs. The occasional one would grow. And so, as I was doing my research, I find out that beets will not produce roots if planted when the soil is too cold. I can start them inside and plant out 5 weeks after germination. So if I want to plant them in early June, the soil temperature will not be up to this 10 to 26 degrees Celsius. The only way to do it would be to plant them inside, and then once the plants are up, the air temperature is more important than the soil temperature. And that will be the same. You see here's cabbage, 16 to 18, but the germination temperature could go as high as 30. And a lot of the plants are like that. So that's why we start them inside and plant them out as transplants. I have the germination time here because, you know, as gardeners, you plant a seed and you're like, is it up yet? Is it up yet? Well, with this we'll know that whether or not I should be expecting it to be up. Whether or not it's shade tolerant, because I have the shady plot. If they're perennials or biennials, I have the USDA hardiness zone. And then, of course, I have a spot for notes. Now, this is my table for herbs. I have the type, which would be in the previous table I just showed you. And here is the actual variety. For the herbs, I have whether or not I've got the plants already, whether or not I have seeds for it, the days to maturity. So some of them so far, as you can see, I do have, if I was to plant them as seeds, how many days would it be that I can grow them as an annual? So onion chives, I got 50 here, and apparently I do have it back in the other table because it shows me the GDU requirements here. But I'll show you that in just a minute. Hardiness zones for the perennials. And this seed company column, this is where I can get the seeds for this particular variety. And then once again, of course, the notes. The perennials, I have type and variety. I have trees, bushes, plants, and I just have whether or not I have them there. Whether I tried them and whether or not they failed. Because if I put in tried, I just want to keep the ones that I actually know about. But if I put in tried and then they failed and I just delete them, when I come across a seed or plant again, I won't know whether or not I've tried them. So I have to put in a tried column and a failed column and an in progress column. GDU needs, as you know, for the perennials, I haven't gotten the data yet. I found several papers and I could get the abstract, but they are all in pay for access journals and I have no way to get it. I'm trying to get a hold of Memorial University, where I got my bachelor degree, and see if I can get access through them. This dormant days needed. Perennials, most of them, need a certain amount of days below their minimum growing temperature. It's not a minimum temperature they need. They just need it to be below, if they are a base 5 plant, they need it to be below 5 degrees Celsius for a certain number of days to give them their winter rest. This is, as you know, loosely connected with the hardiness zone. But the hardiness zone is also important because even though they may need a certain number of days, if the temperature gets too cold in that certain number of days, then you're still going to kill your plant. The source is where I can get the seeds or plants, and then the notes. Now, this is where we're calculating growing degree units. I've got almost everything I need for annuals. If I were to go to, you see this row right here, it doesn't have a variety because this is a test row. I've got days to maturity of that variety and the GDU requirements. When they're giving you these days to maturity, this is under optimum conditions. So you have optimum moisture, optimum nutrition, optimum sunlight, optimum temperature. So in this, say for kidney beans, 100 days, if we were to go back to this table and we look up kidney beans is a baking bean, the optimum GDUs is 12. Under optimum conditions, a baking bean will be using 12 GDUs per day at base 5. So if it takes 100 days to maturity, then that's 12 times 100, which will give you 1200, which is what I got here. I've got a formula which will take the optimum GDUs from the types table and then calculate it in for this field in the annuals table. I got the base temperature here, which basically is pulled from the other table, just because if I go to my monitoring from last year, I only have 1 year's worth of data yet. But in that year, you can see I have the date, maximum temperature, minimum temperature, then it calculates the mean temperature for me. And then over here, I have the daily GDU 5. It's calculating the GDUs for that day, and the accumulated GDUs for 5. It sums it all up for the year. Same with base 10. So we're at, okay, there's 908, so we're down in September. If I scroll on down to my first frost date, which is October the 1st, last year I recorded 1,399.3 growing degree units at base 5. If I were to go back up to my last frost date, which would be May the 31st, I've already recorded 114. So between the frost dates, we're getting 1250. That's what I got last year. So I can go off of that, or I can go to here, which is a government website, climateatlas.ca. This is a Canadian website. I can click on my area, and it will pull up this one here. I go down to agriculture, And I can do frost-free season, date of first frost, date of last frost, corn heat units, growing degree days, base 5, base 10, base 15, or base 4. Base 4 because apples and carrots, I think, are two that are actually base 4, not base 5. So, I make sure that I'm on growing degree days base 5. And it tells me, on average, I get 1274 growing degree units for the growing season. Now, I'm not sure whether this is between the frost dates or is that the entire growing season. I go back here and I'm looking at this. I'm saying, well, I got about 1200 growing degree units. Most years will be at least that in my garden. So here's our beans. And I put in 100, and you can see it does 1200. If I had a bean that was less, see, if I put 95 in here, you see it changes. A 95-day bean would only take 1140 growing degree units. But that changes according to your type of crop. Let's see. Here's carrot. You see the test one I got for carrot right here? 93 days for carrots gives me 1209. If I put in 92, I'm below. So 92, 93 days for a carrot is the longest growing carrot that I can reliably get a full root from. Now, with carrots, of course, it doesn't matter because they start to grow quite early. And if you get a half a root, well, you still got a carrot. But if you're looking for full maturity, then you have to go by this. And I can put these in here and then get the maximum number of days that I can have for that type of crop. So then I went online and I checked out all the companies in Canada that had heirloom and heritage type seeds. And I went through every one of the harder ones to grow. That's all I've done yet. I might do all of their selections at some point and then record here everything that I am interested in growing. But for now, I've just put what are the harder ones to grow and what are the growing degree days. Just the ones that are below or just above that maximum. There was 12 from Heritage Harvest Seeds, and so I bought those, and I will check the other ones out as the years go on. See, I have tomato, 42 days, Centennial Rocket, furthest north, Lata, Stupus, Beaver Lodge Slicer, Silvery Fir Tree. I have a white scallop squash, vegetable marrow. I'm hoping that that's going to be like the spaghetti squash, but I don't know. Rondanice, zucchini, more than early cucumber, and a bush cucumber. What I can do, you see, is just go days to maturity. Go at smallest to largest, and then go back to type and order it A to Z, and then the shortest one in every category is on top. All of the ones above my test row are the ones that should be suited to my particular growing area. As I said, in my next video I'll tell you about these in detail, but I want to give you some information that I failed to give you. It was 2 videos ago now, where I soaked these in linseed oil. So one of my viewers pointed out, he said that linseed oil is toxic. At least the stuff you get in the States, he said. So I bought this a long time ago, which is why I forgot to give you that detail. I went and done my fact checking, and it didn't take much of a search, and I came across this information right here. I'll put that down there for right now. Raw linseed oil is in fact flaxseed oil. It takes a long time to dry, but is entirely non-toxic. The polymerized version is true boiled linseed oil, sometimes called stand oil. Stand oil is generated by eating linseed oil 300 degrees Celsius for a few days in complete absence of air. Under these conditions, a highly viscous product results, which provides exceptionally uniform coatings that dry to a more elastic coatings than the linseed oil itself. This true boiled linseed oil is also non-toxic. However, the boiled linseed oil you can buy in most stores is actually mostly raw linseed oil, but with plasticizers, hardeners, and heavy metals added to make it act like true boiled oil, without the time and effort it takes to actually boil the linseed oil. In other words, it's cheap. I checked mine. Nowhere on this container does it say anything about toxicity, and there is no danger here except for danger of combustion, because if you put the linseed oil in an enclosed area, like if you put soaked rags in a bag, they can actually spontaneously combust, and then you have a fire. The closest they come to saying this is toxic, it says do not eat or feed to animals. So I'm assuming that the type I have here is stand oil, the actual true boiled linseed oil. It was a long time ago since I got it, so I don't remember what my actual questions about it were when I actually bought this. That is my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. I hope you'll hit the thumbs up for me before you leave, and I'll see you in the next video.